Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Copper Jacket TV. So today is going to be part 2 to yesterday's video where we talked about New York and the new law that's going to be taking effect on September 1st, 2022. This new law involves a lot of new gun control. Yesterday we talked about the body armor ban. We also talked about the ammunition background checks and registration. Today we're going to be talking about everywhere else, including where you will not be allowed to carry, which is just about everywhere. So let's get to it. Now, real quick before we get started, most of the people that watch these videos are not actually subscribed. If you wouldn't mind, take a quick second, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It only takes a second, but it helps me out quite a bit. Also, check out the main sponsor of this channel down below, which is the USCCA. If you carry to defend yourself, whether in your home or outside of your home, you need the USCCA. With your membership, you get self-defense liability and so much more. So definitely worth checking out. Let's get to it. Okay, so we're going to start off by first going over the bullet points that were released by the New York Governor's office. These bullet points give you kind of a brief overview of all of the changes that were made and the new laws that were created under the two bills, A41001 and S51001. Those are the bills that the governor ended up signing, and they both expand on existing law and create new laws as well. So this is, if you don't know, this is all in response to the NYSRPA v. Bruin case that was decided by the Supreme Court, which said that New York is not allowed to use the just cause or good cause requirement anymore, saying that that was unconstitutional. So they went ahead and they got rid of that, but they replaced it with a whole bunch more and added a bunch of new regulations, rules, and laws on top of it now to make it even more difficult to get a permit than I think it even was before. And if you did get a permit, there's pretty much nowhere that you can carry. And we'll go over all the places that you can or can't carry in just a second. So the first bullet point says, expanding on the eligibility requirements in the concealed carry permitting process, including completed firearms training courses for applicants. So basically, they're going to be expanding the training requirements for people who want to apply for a permit, including live fire training and so forth. Now, the next bullet point here barely scratches the surface on where you can or can't carry, but let me read it to you anyway. Restricting the carrying of concealed weapons in sensitive locations, which they deem to be just about everywhere, and establishing that private property owners must expressly allow a person to possess a firearm, rifle, or shotgun on their property. Individuals who carry concealed weapons in sensitive locations or in contravention of the authority of an owner of private property will face criminal penalties, and that is for, again, just simply entering a private property that doesn't have a sign that expressly says that you're allowed to carry there. The next bullet point, establishing state oversight over background checks for firearms and regular checks on license holders for criminal convictions. So what they're going to do in New York is they're actually expanding the background check process by now involving the state. So before, you would just simply run a NICS check, right, through the FBI. So they would run your NICS check, you fill out your 4473, they'd send that through, everything comes back good, that's it, end of story, they can go ahead and hand that over, right? Now they want a state background check as well, because what they're saying is that the NICS check misses stuff that may not be transmitted from a state level. So maybe something happened within the state, it didn't get transmitted, and therefore when you run the NICS check, it's not going to show up. So now the state is going to be running their own background checks on you on top of the federal background check. So they're expanding on it by having essentially two background checks, one for state and one for federal. So that's not going to lead to any problems. Creating a statewide license and ammunition database, which is what we talked about yesterday. And again, the body armor, strengthening and clarifying the law relating to the sale of body armor, including hard body armor. So we talked about that yesterday. Okay, so now let's say that you went through the permitting process and you were denied, or you had a license that was revoked. That's where the April 1st of 2023 thing comes in. It looks like you won't have any relief until, several months into next year. So let me just read this real quick. These laws will take effect on September 1st, 2022. In addition, an appeals board will be created for those applicants whose licenses or renewal is denied or revoked, which will take effect on April 1st, 2023. So they won't even have a board for people to appeal to until next year. But these laws are still going to take effect September 1st, 2022. So if something happens and you need to appeal, there's not even going to be a board created for that until, again, like 4 months into next year. So it's just a total mess. Okay, so now let's get into these sensitive places and where you can't carry. By the way, they consider just about everything a sensitive place. This is almost as bad as California. I believe California is even a little bit worse because they talk about adjacent streets, sidewalks, they talk about 1,000-foot distance from certain areas. I mean, you know, California took it to the next level. But again, this is still just as bad because there's no way that you can go about your daily life without crossing through one of these sensitive areas. And if you do, I mean, it's going to be really bad news. So it's just completely ridiculous. This is just all something that they created to throw back in the face of the Bruin decision. That's really all that this is. So sensitive locations and private property. Certain locations are always unsafe for guns, and this legislation makes concealed carry in sensitive locations a punishable crime. Sensitive locations include airports, bars and restaurants that serve alcohol, which is just about all of them unless you're going to like a fast food place maybe, courthouses, daycare facilities, playgrounds, and other locations where children gather. Now, any location where children gather, that could be at the mall, that could be at an outdoor strip mall, it could be just about anywhere where children gather. So again, it is somewhat vague in the way that they explain it. Now, the bill explains it a little bit more detail, but it's still just as vague. So you may be in a place that seems like it's perfectly fine. It doesn't hit any one of these sensitive places, but they could just simply determine this is a place where children gather, and that's the end of that. Educational institutions, okay? Emergency shelters, including domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters. Entertainment venues. So all of your entertainment venues, just forget about it. Those are going to be off limits as well. Federal, state, and local government buildings. Health and medical facilities. Houses of worship. So they're telling you right there what you can or can't do with more than one of your rights. They're essentially blocking your First and Second Amendment rights. House of worship, libraries, polling sites, public demonstrations and rallies. So public demonstrations and rallies. So these are going to be permitted events, right? You're not going to be able to go to any of those and be able to protect yourself. Now, obviously, we know, right, that all of the bad guys out there, the people that wish you to do you harm, probably going over this list to make sure that they don't violate any of these. So we should be fine there. Those public rallies and demonstrations should end up being totally safe. You won't have to worry about that, right? I mean, it's mind-blowing. It's not mind-blowing. It's mind-numbing how these people think. It really is, because it's so counterintuitive. Public transportation, including subways and buses. Nothing bad ever happens on the subway or buses, right? There's never a need to defend yourself or anybody on the bus that might do something that could require that type of response. So obviously, you know, let's make sure that nobody can defend themselves while on any public transportation. And of course, Times Square. So if you are, for some reason, just going through Times Square, you're going to have to go around, because according to this, that's a sensitive place. Now, the other thing is again, a thing that's very similar to what they're doing in California. If you're going, let's say that you made it through that entire gauntlet, right? You managed to make your way somewhere that is not listed as one of those sensitive places. If you go to a business or private property of any kind, and there is not a sign that's posted that says, carry is legal here, we allow carry. So they have to have a sign posted for the public to see that says that they allow carry. If that sign's not there, you can't go in, because that would be considered a sensitive place, and it was considered a sensitive place by the owner of the establishment or the owner of the private property. So if you go through an entire day and for some reason every spot on your stop has something that's a sensitive location, well, guess what? You've effectively lost your ability to carry, and they violated your Second Amendment rights. I mean, every bit of these bills, every bit of these new laws flies in the face of Bruin, and it goes after your Second Amendment rights. Now, thankfully, I've heard, I believe Brandon over there at Langley, I think it's Outdoors Academy now. Sorry, buddy, I remember it as Langley Firearms Academy. But Langley Outdoors Academy, he did a video last night saying that the GOA might be seeking an injunction as early as today to stop this from happening. And hopefully the GOA will be able to get that injunction, and you know, this won't go into effect when they want it to go into effect, because again, it is in direct conflict with Bruin. So, I mean, Bruin said specifically that while you are allowed to have some sensitive locations, right? So, federal buildings and things like that might be considered a sensitive location. You can't just wave a wand and say that all of this is sensitive locations just because you deemed it so. No, they have to have a reason for making something a sensitive location other than just people gather. People gathering is actually something that the Supreme Court mentioned is not a reason to consider something a sensitive location at all. So again, all of this flies in the face of the Bruin decision and should be, and I believe can be and will be, overturned. It's just a matter of time. But in the meanwhile, people need to know that this exists, and we know that they're going to enforce it at maximum. Now, you might not be able to defend yourself, and if you try to, they're probably going to, make you look like the bad guy, but I guarantee they're going to enforce this. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's terrible. So ammunition background checks, registration for that, expanded background checks by the state on any sales and transfers so that the state can run a background check on you as well as the NIC system. Then you have all of these sensitive locations. Also, there is another law that was implemented that they didn't note in the bullet points here, and that is where you're supposed to lock things up. So let's say that if somebody is 16 years old or younger in your home previously in New York, you're supposed to have all of your stuff locked up, locked away. Now they've raised that to 18 years old. So anybody in your home that can get access to your Second Amendment tool, if they're up to 18 years old, you have to now lock them up. Also, it expands on where. So previously, you could bring something in your car and it didn't have to be locked up when you left your vehicle. Now they're expanding that to your vehicle as well. So you have to have it locked up in your vehicle, meaning that you have to have some type of lock box or something that secures it from anybody being able to get access to it. So again, they've expanded where you're supposed to have these safe storage. Safe storage laws now go with you outside of the house. It's really unbelievable. So I want to let you guys know that that's what's going on. These laws start September 1st. I don't see anything in there that says anything otherwise. The only thing that I see at a later date is going to be, their end of things. So if you get a bad renewal, it doesn't go through, or it gets revoked or something, you're going to have to wait till April in order to appeal it. So it's terrible. It's terrible what they're doing, but we know this is just, it's spite, right? It's just spite for the Supreme Court and their decision for our freedoms and our rights. That's what this is. So again, hopefully GOA wins here and they can get an injunction and get this overturned like it should be, and people in New York can finally get their rights because that's what they deserve. Thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, and you guys have a great day.